Hey guys, this is Brian, aka One Page at a Time, bringing you my weekly book club, book review, book discussion, whatever you want to call it. Last week, well, was it last week? Yeah, we just finished up Napoleon Hill's The Law of Success, which I think was a good read. And this week we're starting Atomic Habits by James Clear, which I think is the perfect companion to it. Um, and it's a really great book. I think this is a book that can really change your lives. Now, in the past, I just tended to kind of highlight some things and go, read a few passages. But as I was rereading chapter one today, it's like everything in there is so good. So I may just read the whole freaking chapter one tonight, and we can talk about it. Link is here. Anybody that's read it or wants to jump on the live show. How's it going, Val? There's the link. Hey, Lorena. Glad you stopped by. And Lorena won the contest and she got a free copy of the book. So if Lorena wants to jump on, she can. All right. Now, it starts with an introduction. And this I will just kind of summarize. The author, he starts off with him in high school. And he's playing baseball, and his dad played minor league baseball, and like baseball was his thing, was his passion. And he had this freak accident. The bat smashed him in the head. Instant blood. He didn't know where he was. They had to take him to the hospital. He went to the hospital, got care flighted, brain swelling. They had to put him in a coma and on a ventilator, and it was almost like he almost died. So it was one of those life-changing experiences. Yeah, chapter one should all be highlighted. Yeah, chapter one's so good, and the intro is really good. Like this whole book, this is an amazing book, and I think I don't know. I think Clay's driving around, but Clay, I'm thinking Clay, this one might resonate more with you. It's more of a systems approach, but anyway, he talks about this. So it takes him a year. I think he's a junior. He tries out for varsity. He does not make the varsity team. They send him to JV. He was devastated, disappointed, stuck with it. Came back the next year as a senior, made varsity. But he only played 11 innings that whole season. So he goes off to college, walks on. Well, I think am I gonna head of the story? See, that's my introduction. All right. I'm sorry, I'm not that prepared. All right. And so I think I'm kind of leaking over into chapter one. I see Lorena's way ahead on chapter six. That's awesome. Yeah, I think this will be good for Clay. So I'm just going to read. I'm going to start reading chapter one because I know some people probably don't have the book, and this will be more of a commentary. You guys feel free to jump in anytime. Chapter one is the surprising power of atomic habits. He says the fate of British cycling changed one day in 2003. The organization, which was the governing body for professional cycling in Great Britain, had recently hired Dave Brailsford as its new performance director. At the time, professional cyclists in Great Britain had endured nearly 100 years of mediocrity. Since 1908, British riders had won just a single gold medal at the Olympic Games, and they had even fared worse in cycling's biggest race, the Tour de France. In 110 years, no British cyclist had ever won the event, so they sucked at cycling. In fact, the performance of British riders had been so underwhelming that one of the top bike manufacturers in Europe refused to sell bikes to the team because they were afraid that it would hurt sales if other professionals saw the Brits using the event, using their gear. Brailsford had been hired to put British cycling on a new trajectory. What made him different from previous coaches was his relentless commitment to a strategy that he referred to as the aggregation of marginal gains. The aggregation of marginal gains, which was a philosophy of searching for a tiny margin of improvement in everything you do. Brailsford said, the whole principle came from the idea that if you broke down everything you could think of that goes into riding a bike and then improve it by 1%, you will get a significant increase when you put them all together. And as I was reading this, it made me realize my favorite YouTuber, at least for reselling, is Daily Refinement. And I've been on his Patreon groups before, and his channel name is Daily Refinement, which is that whole principle. Let's get a little bit better each day. And that's what they're talking about here. Brailsford and his coach began by making small adjustments you might expect from a professional cycling team. They redesigned the bike seats to make them more comfortable and rubbed alcohol on the tires for a better grip. They asked riders to wear electrically heated overshorts to maintain ideal muscle temperature while riding and used biofeedback sensors to monitor how each athlete responded to a particular workout. The team tested various fabrics in a wind tunnel and had their outdoor riders switch to indoor racing suits, which proved to be lighter and more aerodynamic. But they didn't stop there. Brailsford and his team continued to find 1% improvements in overlooked and unexpected areas. They tested different types of massage gels to see which one led to the fastest muscle recovery. They hired a surgeon to teach each rider the best way to wash their hands to reduce the chances of catching a cold. They determined the type of pillow and mattress that led to the best night's sleep for each rider. They even painted the inside of the team truck white, which helped them spot little bits of dust that would normally slip by unnoticed, but could degrade the performance of the finely tuned bikes. At these and hundreds of other small improvements accumulated, the results came faster than anyone would have imagined. Just 5 years after Brailsford took over, the British cycling team dominated the road and track cycling events at the 2008 Olympic Games in Beijing, where they won an astounding 60% of the gold medals available. 4 years later, when the Olympic Games came to London, the Brits raised the bar as they set 9 Olympic records and 7 world records. The same year, Bradley Wiggins became the first British cyclist to win the Tour de France. The next year, his teammates Chris Froome won the race, and he would go on to win again in 2015, 2016, and 2017, giving the British team 5 Tour de France victories in 6 years. During the 10-year span from 2007 to 2017, British cyclists won 178 world championships and 66 Olympic or Paralympic gold medals and captured 5 Tour de France victories in what is widely regarded as the most successful run in cycling history. How does this happen? How does a team of previously ordinary athletes transform into world champions with tiny changes that at first glance would seem to make a modest difference at best? Why do small improvements accumulate into such remarkable results, and how can you replicate this approach in your own life? So obviously he starts this chapter 1 with the story of the British cycling team and how they made all these small changes, and the accumulation was greater than the sum of its parts. Let me catch up on chat. If anybody's got anything to add or any questions from that first part, let me know. Hey, glad you're listening while you're rolling around, Clay. Tell your mom we said hello. Lorena says, I don't know, but this book has been very mind-blowing to me. Oh, mind-blowing, I think. I've been doing life wrong. What do you mean you've been doing it wrong? I do think it is a mind-blowing book, and I think there's a lot here. So I'm curious, a little more input. Lorena says, I'm still struggling to apply the concept to my life, but at least I know when I'm completely failing. Okay, well, and I think, because Clay, I'll use Clay here as we introduce the concept of incremental improvements, right? Or daily refinement. Again, Clay's always saying, baby steps. And I think that's what those are. Baby steps are small steps in the right place. So whether, I personally think this fits in perfectly with the goal setting of Napoleon Hill. But even if you're like Clay and you don't believe in goal setting, I think you could jump on board with this mindset of taking baby steps or small improvements in little areas of your life and building that momentum. Ooh, we're going to talk about bad habits, and I think we all do, Lorena. And as we get into this, there's a section where he'll talk about identifying your habits, and you actually rate them. First, you got to figure out what are your habits. We all have habits, some good, some bad. Then identifying, are those positive habits, negative habits, or neutral habits. All right, let me continue. Next section is why small habits make a big difference. It's so easy to overestimate the importance of one defining moment and underestimate the value of making small improvement on a daily basis. Too often we convince ourselves that massive success requires massive action. I'm going to read that again. I think that's what I always believe, and I think a lot of people do. Too often we convince ourselves that massive success requires massive action. And for me, and maybe some others, maybe that's why we're not successful, because we think we don't have it within us to make that massive action. But James Clear is saying you don't need massive action. Whether it is losing weight, which, by the way, after Napoleon Hill's book and with this one, I've got a lot of areas I'm trying to apply this to. The losing weight, I'm on MyFitnessPal. I've started a food log where I'm tracking my food. I'm trying to continue the running, and those are habits, the running habits I need to accomplish. Building a business, that's definitely all about habits. Writing a book, winning a championship, or achieving any other goal, we put pressure on ourselves to make some earth-shattering improvement that everyone will talk about. Meanwhile, improving by 1% isn't particularly notable. Sometimes it isn't even noticeable, but it can be far more meaningful, especially in the long run. The difference a tiny improvement can make over time is astounding. Here's how the math works out. If you can get 1% better each day for 1 year, you'll end up 37 times better by the time you're done. Let me repeat that. If you get better 1% each day for a year, you'll end up 37 times better by the time you're done. I mean, that's amazing. Conversely, and this is, I think, what Lorena was talking about, the bad habits. If you get 1% worse each day for 1 year, you'll decline nearly down to zero. What starts as a small win or a minor setback accumulates into something much more. And here's a little chart which shows it. The dotted line is the 1%, and it shows you. You see, when you first start, like, the progress is slow, and then, gosh, I hate to say this, almost like COVID-19. It's like the exponential growth. Those habits start to stack up, and you have exponential growth or decline. I love this part right here. I underlined and starred this. Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. And when we talk about compound interest, we're talking about the rule of 72, which is considered the eighth wonder of the world. If you take 72 and divide it by the interest rate or the rate of return, if you use the stock market, the historical average return on the S&P 500, the stock market is 12%. So that means 72 divided by 12 is 6. So that means if you put $10,000 into the stock market, let's say you're 1 year old, right? In 6 years, on average, you just pick an average stock, that money would double. And I've showed my students this. I wish they would teach this more. So, and you could do better. I personally believe you can do better on the return. But that's the power of compound interest or compound return. So if you did that, 10,000 at 1 year, 6 years later, at 7 years old, that 10,000 is worth 20. So imagine your grandparents. Let's do this. Your grandparents gave you $10,000 when you were born. Let's say a zero right when you're born, and it's an S&P 500. This is going to illustrate the power of compound interest. You're getting an average rate of return historically on the stock market. 6 years later, when you're 6 years old, that 10,000 is worth 20. At 12 years old, it's now worth 40. It's doubling again. At 18, it's up to 40,000. At 18, it's worth $40,000. At 6 years, at 24, let me write this down. At 24, all right, hold on, let me do this again. So at 0, you got 10,000. At 6, you're at 20K. At 12, you're at 40K. At 18, you're at 80K. At 24, you're at 160K. At 30, you're at 320K. At 36, you're at 640K. At 42, you could retire if you've never touched it at 1.28 million. And I'll just keep playing it out to retirement age. The numbers are mind-boggling. At 48, you're at 2.56 million. At 54, you're at 5.12 billion. At 60, you're at 10.24 million. At 66, you're at 20.48 million. So that $10,000, if you got the average rate of return, if you were gifted that at birth and you didn't touch it and got the average rate of return at 66, you'd have over $20 million. That's the idea of compound interest. And let's bring it back to what he was saying. I'm sorry, that's a little side tangent because I've also started investing. I'm all over the place as usual. The last thing I talked about in Napoleon Hill's book was the habit of saving, was his last law. And so I'm, of course, I want to take that one step further. So what I'm doing is I'm taking 15% of my money I'm making on reselling and I'm investing it into individual stocks to incorporate his law of success, the habit of saving, but to also make some return. All right, let me catch up on the chat and we'll continue. Val says, I think just reading this book and learning a new way of thinking about goals is a 1% improvement. Ooh, girl, you get a gold star. I like that. Yeah, just thinking about that. That's a 1% improvement for sure. More specific, bad food, health habits. That's hard, right? Oh, that's hard for me. Like trying to lose weight, food, because I love food. And I've done different things, but right now I'm doing the MyFitnessPal, just logging my food. And I had a bad day, like I was telling Clay, I had a fudge brownie sundae, but I put it in my log and I'm had to be accountable for it. So being aware of that, even if it's bad, is good. Clay says, waiting for some giant change and setting up for failure because changes don't come like that, right? Lorraine says, Clay, that's pretty much what I meant when I said I've been doing these things wrong. Well, I think we probably all have, Lorena. Clay says, we all have set ourselves up for failure that way. That's why I work so hard to be in the now and okay with it and just do better because I'm still learning there is no fixing yourself. Well, I think you can improve yourself. I don't know if you can say fix it, but we can work to get better. Val has, I have an all in nothing personality. I figure if I go big, I'll have big results, but then I get discouraged. Well, so I agree with you, Val. I think that's the Napoleon Hill. I do think people that go big, they have that in their mind that is their goal, is to be big. And then if you add these habits, these daily improvements, it'll get you to that big spot. It may just take you a little bit longer. Or if you're like Clay, you don't want to think about the big results, but you start to do the right things, you start to make those small improvements, and you will still kind of head that way, even though I think it'd be better if you set the goals personally. I know Clay's stressed out about the school board. All right, man. Clay's trying to not cycle up or down in the gray, as he says. And Val says, I've always been an all or nothing person. I think it'd be used in a good way if I change my way of thinking and focus on the process and not the end goal. Yeah, well, this is my thought, and we'll talk about this when we get more into it. I need to get back to it, but I think you do need the goal. I will personally. I think it's better if you have the goal, like if you have the goal and then you incorporate these improvements, like the British cycling team, their goal was to win some championships. I'm sure. I don't know exactly what their specific goal was. It wasn't just to get a little bit better. Get a little bit better leads you to your goal, in my opinion. Now, if you just focus on the process and you focus on getting better, will you have results? Absolutely. But because you haven't defined them, I guess you don't know how much better you need to get. All right. Let me get back to this. Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. The same way that money multiplies through compound interest, the effects of your habits multiply as you repeat them. So that little scenario I gave you, that's what this does to your life. That's what habits do. It's like compound interest. It leads to exponential growth. They seem to make little difference on any given day, and yet the impact they deliver over the months and years can be enormous. It is only when looking back 2, 5, or perhaps 10 years later that the value of good habits and the cost of bad ones become strikingly apparent. Just use an example. Let's just say you drink a soda every day for 5, 10 years. That's going to have a certain effect. It's a small effect on a daily basis. Whereas if you gave up soda after 5 years, you're going to have a remarkable improvement from that one small change. This can be a difficult concept to appreciate in daily life. We often dismiss small changes because they don't seem to matter very much in the moment. If you save a little money now, you're still not a millionaire. If you go to the gym 3 days in a row, you're still out of shape. That's what I'm struggling with right now, the running. If you study Mandarin for an hour tonight, you still haven't learned the language. We make a few changes, but the results never seem to come quickly. And I think that's the key. We don't see those quick results and we get discouraged, and then we usually give up. But if we give them time and stick with them, I think the results will be there. And we slide back to our previous routines. Unfortunately, the slow pace of transformation always makes it easy to let a bad habit slide. If you eat an unhealthy meal today, the scale doesn't move much. If you work late tonight and ignore your family, they will forgive you. If you procrastinate and put your project off until tomorrow, there will usually be time to finish it later. A single decision is easy to dismiss. But when we repeat 1% errors day after day by replicating poor decisions, duplicating tiny mistakes, and rationalizing little excuses, our small choices compound into toxic results. It's the accumulation of many missteps, a 1% decline here and there, that eventually leads to a problem. The impact created by a change in your habits is similar to the effect of shifting the route of an airplane by just a few degrees. Imagine you are flying from LA to New York City. If a pilot leaving from LAX adjusts the heading just 3.5 degrees south, you will land in Washington, D.C. instead of New York. Such a small change is barely noticeable at takeoff. The nose of the airplane moves just a few feet, but when magnified across the entire United States, you end up hundreds of miles apart. Similarly, a slight change in your daily habits can guide your life to a very different destination. I'm going to repeat that one. I think this one's good. Similarly, a slight change in your daily habits can guide your life to a very different destination, using the metaphor of the airplane. Making a choice that is 1% better or 1% worse seems insignificant in the moment, but over the span of moments that makes up a lifetime, these choices determine the difference between who you are and who you could be. Success is the product of daily habits, not once in a lifetime transformations. I'm going to repeat that. Success is the product of daily habits, not once in a lifetime transformations. That said, it doesn't matter how successful or unsuccessful you are right now. What matters is whether your habits are putting you on the path towards success. You should be far more concerned with your current trajectory than with your current results. If you're a millionaire but you spend more than you earn each month, then you're on a bad trajectory. If your spending habits don't change, it's not going to end well. Conversely, if you're broke but you save a little bit every month, then you're on the path toward financial freedom, even if you're moving slower than you'd like. And that makes me think back to Napoleon Hill's law of success. He talked about that even in the 1928, how there were people that were millionaires that went broke. And these days, we always think of the athletes that make all this money, but they spend it even faster than they earn it. So it's the trajectory, right? Are you saving more or are you spending more? And in the long term, that's what's gonna make the difference. Your outcomes are a lagging measure of your habits. Your outcomes are a lagging measure of your habits. Your net worth is a lagging measure of your financial habits. Your weight is a lagging measure of your eating habits. Yikes. Your knowledge is a lagging measure of your learning habits. That's what you should be reading. Your clutter is a lagging measure of your cleaning habits. You get what you repeat. You get what you repeat. If you want to predict where you'll end up in life, all you have to do is follow the curve of tiny gains and tiny losses and see how your daily choices will compound 10 or 20 years down the line. Are you spending less than you earn each month? Are you making it into the gym each week? Are you reading books and learning something new each day? Yes. Tiny battles like these are the ones that will define your future self. Time magnifies the margin between success and failure. Ooh, I like that. Time magnifies the margin between success and failure. It will multiply whatever you feed it. Good habits make time your ally. Bad habits makes time your enemy. Ooh, that's good. Good habits makes time your ally. Bad habits makes time your enemy. Habits are a double-edged sword. Bad habits can cut you down just as easily as good habits can build you up, which is why understanding the details is crucial. You need to know how habits work and how to design them to your liking so you can avoid the dangerous half of the blade. And then on page 19, they have this little subsection: your habits can compound for you or against you, and it gives you a little table. Positive compounding, productivity compounds. Accomplishing one extra task is a small feat on any given day. Think about that. If you listed one more item every day than you did last year, at the end of the year, how many more items have you listed? But it counts for a lot over an entire career. The effect of automating an old task or mastering a new skill can be even greater. Think about like the Rolo printer. That one small change, gosh, I only made it this year and I've been reselling for 3 years. That was more than a 1% gain. That might have been like a 5% gain. But that one small change made a huge impact. And imagine that over time. The difference between using a Rolo printer and a standard kettle mount printer over 30 years of reselling. The more tasks you can handle without thinking, the more your brain is free to focus on other areas. And now it gives the negative compounding. Stress compounds. The frustration of a traffic jam. Like I become nasty in traffic. Like we were on vacation up in Colorado and I wasn't nice to some people because of the stress of traffic. You have to kind of know those triggers too. The weight of parenting responsibilities. The worry of making ends meet, the strain of slightly high blood pressure. By themselves, these common causes of stress are manageable, but when they persist for years, little stresses compound into serious health issues. That's pretty good. It's not good, but it's pretty interesting. Moving to the positive, knowledge compounds. Learning one new idea won't make you a genius, but a commitment to lifelong learning can be transformative. Furthermore, each book you read not only teaches you something new, but also opens up different ways of thinking about old ideas. Ooh, you know I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to repeat that for y'all. Each book you read not only teaches you something new, but also opens up different ways of thinking about old ideas. And that's what we're doing right now as we're discussing this. As Warren Buffett, now he's the most famous American investor, says, that's how knowledge works. It builds up like compound interest. And by the way, you know the number one most common habit of millionaires? They read. They read, I forget what the hour, it's several hours a day. And Warren Buffett reads so much per day. They're acquiring that knowledge constantly. Let's move to the negative side. Negative thoughts compound. And Clay and I, we talk about this. We call it spiraling. The more you think of yourself as worthless, stupid, or ugly, the more you condition yourself to interpret life that way. It's that mindset. Like attracts like, going back to Napoleon Hill's law of success. The same is true for how you think about others. Once you fall into the habit of seeing people as angry, unjust, or selfish, you see those kind of people everywhere. To me, it's like when you buy a new car, let's just say you bought, will be fun, a Ford Mustang GT, right? 5.0. soon as you buy that car, you notice that car everywhere you go. You weren't noticing that car before, but now your mind is focused on that because you have it. So you see, and this goes back to Napoleon Hill, you see what your mind focuses on. That's why I think the goal setting, the auto suggestion, all those factors are really important. That's why I want to stack all these good self-help books on top of each other. All right, going back to the positive, relationships compound. People reflect your behavior back to you. The more you help others, the more others want to help you. What do we call it? Karma. Being a little bit nicer in each interaction can result in a network of broad and strong connections over time. And I think Clay's really good at this. And this is an area I have to work on because I'm very introverted. And I have a lot of anxiety in my life. That's something I'm working on right now. And it causes a lot of problems. And people tend to think like I'm mean. I don't think I'm really mean. I'm introverted, plus I'm anxious. And some of the way I was raised, it just comes off as wrong. So I think being nicer is one of those areas I need to work on that 1%. Let's go to the other side, the outrage compounds. Riots, this is kind of relevant. Protests and mass movements are rarely the result of a single event. Instead, a long series of microaggressions and daily aggravations slowly multiply until one event tips the scales and outrage spreads like wildfire. Think about the Black Lives Matter movement, all the injustice, all those issues. It's the straw that broke the camel's back. All right, let me catch up on the chat as I finish that little subsection. Val says, I like how he talked about when we mess up, it's okay, it's going to happen, but there will be more positive habits than bad ones. I think he uses voting as an example. That's good. Yeah, we're going to make mistakes, right? But it's the trajectory and that we're aware of it, I believe. And Lorraine agrees with that. Lorraine says, if I get stressed out, I just throw out all the good habits. Lack of sleep doesn't help. I'm hoping when I finally get a full night's sleep, I can mentally get back on track. Yeah, these life gets in the way, stress gets in the way, anxiety gets in the way, lack of sleep, all these things. And I think like we have to become aware of what are the things that trigger us or cause us to go towards those bad habits. And I don't think we'll ever completely eliminate them, but one, try to limit them. And number two, try to spend more time. Like for me, I'm trying to spend more time on self-care. And, I'm doing a journal each night. I'm doing my daily reading. I've got back to reading my Bible devotions in the morning and pray. Just going for runs. Do those things that keep you in the right mindset. And when we do slip back, to realize it, and it's okay. And kind of like what Val was saying is just try to get back on those good habits, and hopefully the good habits will outweigh the bad ones. Also, Val says, also with the airplane example, if you're only looking at the end goal and not the process, you can't see that you're not on track. That is good, Val. That's really good. Let me repeat that one. Also with the airplane example, if you're only looking at the end goal, so you set your goal, right? But you're not paying attention to the process, you're not gonna know if you're on track. So I think, yeah, you're right. I think you need the goal, and you also need to be doing those small improvements. You got to be managing your process every day. So if you just set a goal and you don't come up with an action plan or these habits, and you don't work on those, then you're not gonna hit that goal either. A goal without a plan is just a dream. Eating habits. Oh yeah. Ooh, tacos, hot dogs, French fries, pretzels, steak. Oh my gosh. Yeah. We grilled burgers and fries. And I logged it into my Fitness Pal. Now for lunch, I had a healthy lunch, and I'm doing a little bit of fasting. Like I didn't eat breakfast. I just had coffee. So I'm still like 800 calories under my limit. But yeah, food habits are hard. And like I don't want to totally give up on food because food is so enjoyable. But once again, it's like pushing down some of those bad habits and replacing them with some good habits, eating more fruit, vegetables, drinking more water, less sodas. Kind of like the 80-20 rule, and that's another good book we can read. the 80-20 rule is like if you do well 80% of the time in anything, you can slip up the 20%. The 80% will carry you where you need to go, pretty much. All right. Lone Star Picker, hey, how's it going? Glad you could drop by, my friend. Louis? Lorraine says, maybe if I write my goals down on paper, will become more than, you missed our last one, Lorraine. Absolutely. The law of success, this is what Napoleon Hill says, that you need to write out your goal on paper. It needs to be specific. And like I have mine here. Mine's right here. And you need to read it at least once a day. And you probably don't have to be as specific as mine, and I won't read this whole thing. I went over this before. But it's very specific. And then when you repeat it, that kind of sinks into your subconscious over time. And because as we were talking about, what you think about, it kind of self-actualizes. So if you have that positive goal and you're repeating it every day, twice a day, but at least once a day, then that's going to sink in and you're going to start to believe it. And this is the weird thing. Your mind will find ways to make it happen. Like I set my goal, it was a pretty big goal. And the week I set it, I like 2 ideas came to me, 2 sourcing ideas. And we could talk about that, those that go to the mastermind call. By the way, if y'all haven't liked the video, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. In the description, there's links to the One Page at a Time Facebook group. I have a Patreon group. And thank you so much, Lorena. You were my first person to join the Patreon group. I really appreciate that. And we also have the 7 Sticks Reseller Mastermind group, where we talk specifically about goals and the daily habits, their improvements, and we help each other to achieve those goals. And my plan is after we finish the book club is to go to the Zoom, and I can give that here. Anybody that wants to join, I'll give that at the end. You can go to our Reselling Mastermind, where we will switch gears and hopefully apply some of these concepts into the specific realm of reselling. But absolutely, writing it down on paper makes it more important. Reading it daily will make it more likely to come true. Absolutely, 100%. All right, let me get off that preaching box. Louis says, yes, that can benefit you greatly. Write it down to ground it outside yourself. Positive affirmation. Yes, sir. Right on. Ooh, let me catch up. Jacob. Hey, glad you dropping by, Jacob. Appreciate it. Just catch up and we'll move to the next section. We got our greetings. We're practicing the 1% nicer, right? Louis says, got in late. Please remind me of chapter name, not page, as I'm on digital. Yeah, we're just doing chapter 1, The Surprising Power of Atomic Habits. And as I was telling the people at the beginning, Louis, normally I just kind of hit the highlights, but I think this book is so concisely written and it's so powerful. I may just read the whole freaking thing and we can have a conversation about it. I don't know, but that's kind of the plan, at least for chapter 1, is to go through it. Jacob said, I was watching another content creator who was giving some advice. The one piece I needed was let it go. I wrote it down in big letters and Sharpies. Yeah, that positive affirmation, right? That reminder, let it go. Let those negative things go. That's good. That is so good. If we hold on to it, it's toxic. Helps me with my intended purpose, accept offers more easily, and also with life crap. Let me talk a little bit reselling. Now, Jacob, I used to have the mindset of I wanted a certain amount, a certain percentage before I would accept an offer. And I lost so many sales that way. I can't tell you how many counters that ended up lost sales on, where over probably the past 4 or 5 months, I accepted this idea. Like on Poshmark, I do a lot of bundles. And since I'm now, and I'll talk about this more in the mastermind group, but I'm doing more of a volume approach now. So if I'm making a profit on a replenishable where I can order a bunch at one time, let me get that sell. Let me trigger the algorithm. Let me get the what is it? One bird in the hand is better than 2 birds in the bush. That's true. So once I started accepting that, my sales went up quite a bit. I think sometimes we can get too greedy and We want X amount, and who knows how many sales we've lost over a couple dollars. Where if you're in the profit and you do have to weigh out how much your time is worth. But for my model with replenishables, with wholesale items, it makes absolute sense because I spend less time, Val, on creating listings. And so all I got to do is reorder inventory. I spend more of my time researching, negotiating with wholesalers to find the inventory than I do creating my listing. So if I can get a sell like on eBay and those sales start to trigger and it moves me. All right, I'm talking too much reselling. Okay. All right, let me move on to the next section. But yeah, I agree absolutely with you. All right, the next section is what progress is really like. Page 20 in the book. I forgot my water downstairs. Dang it. Imagine that you have an ice. Oh, I like this metaphor. Imagine that you have an ice cube sitting on the table in front of you. The room is cold and you can see your breath. It is currently 25 degrees. Ever so slowly, the room begins to heat up. 26 degrees, 27, 28. The ice cube is still sitting on the table in front of you. 29 degrees, 30, 31. Still nothing has happened. Then 32 degrees. The ice begins to melt. A 1 degree shift, seemingly no different from the temperature increases before it, has unlocked a huge change. Breakthrough moments are often the result of many previous actions which build up the potential required to unleash a major change. Ooh, I'm gonna underline that. Breakthrough moments are often the results of many previous actions which build up the potential required to unleash a major change. This pattern shows up everywhere. Cancer spends 80% of its life undetectable, then takes over the body in months. Bamboo can barely be seen for the first 5 years as it builds extensive root systems underground before exploding 90 feet into the air within 6 weeks. Similarly, habits often appear to make no difference until you cross a critical threshold and unlock a new level of performance. In the early and middle stages of any quest, there is often a valley of disappointment. The valley of disappointment. You expect to make progress in a linear fashion, and it's frustrating how ineffective changes can seem during the first days, weeks, and even months. It doesn't feel like you're going anywhere. It's a hallmark of any compounding process. The most powerful outcomes are delayed. This is one of the core reasons why it is so hard to build habits that last. Ooh, I'm going to highlight that. This is one of the core reasons why it's so hard to build habits that last, right? Let's think about working out like I'm running or I'm eating right. We do it for a day, we do it for a week, we do it for a couple weeks. We're working, we're putting the work in, but yet we're not seeing any results. Because there's a delay. There's a delay behind before we see those results. And because we don't see almost that instant feedback, I think especially in our culture and time, like we want that instant gratification. Think about social media. Think about we want everything quickly. We take all these diet pills, all these infomercials. We want the lean body. We don't want to work out for. We don't want to eat right. We want liposuction. We want pills. We want all these things. So we're not patient. People make a few small changes, fail to see a tangible result, and decide to stop. You think, this is what I was just saying. I've been running every day for a month, so why can't I see any change in my body? Once this kind of thinking takes over, it's easy to let good habits fall by the wayside. But in order to make a meaningful difference, habits need to persist long enough to break through this plateau, what I called the plateau of latent potential. The plateau of latent potential. If you find yourself struggling to build a good habit or break a bad one, it is not because you have lost your ability to improve. It is often because you have not yet crossed the plateau of latent potential. Complaining about not achieving success despite working hard is like complaining about an ice cube not melting when you heated it from 25 to 31 degrees. Your work was not wasted, it is just being stored. All the action happens at 32 degrees. I love this metaphor. I think it's a great one. When you finally break through the plateau of latent potential, people will call it an overnight success. The outside world only sees the most dramatic events rather than all that preceded it. But you know that it's the work you did long ago when it seemed that you weren't making any progress that makes the jump today possible. It is the human equivalent of geological pressure. Two tectonic plates can grind against one another for millions of years, the tension slowly building all the while. Then one day they rub each other once again in the same fashion they have for ages. But this time the tension is too great. An earthquake erupts, change can take years before it happens all at once. Change can take years before it happens all at once. Mastery requires patience. The San Antonio Spurs, one of the most successful teams in NBA history, have a quote from social reformer Jacob Riis hanging in their locker room. Quote, "When nothing seems to help, I go and look at a stone cutter hammering away at his rock, perhaps 100 times without as much as a crack showing in it. Yet at the 101st blow, it will split in two. And I know it was not that last blow that did it, but all that had gone before." That's a really good quote. And here's the little illustration of the plateau of latent potential. It has results on the left, on the X, and on the Y. On the bottom, you have the time. And here it shows when you think it should happen, which is linear. There's your valley of disappointment. This is what actually happens, and then you get the result. That's pretty good. All big things come from small beginnings. The seed of every habit is a single tiny decision. But as that decision is repeated, a habit sprouts and grows stronger. Roots entrench themselves and branches grow. The task of breaking a bad habit is like uprooting a powerful oak within us. Ooh, that's good. Or any your food bad habits. The task of breaking a bad habit is like uprooting a powerful oak within us. I mean, that's a good metaphor. That's not an easy thing to do. And the task of building a good habit is like cultivating, right, with the bonsai tree. You know, you got to patiently work with it a little bit each day. But what determines whether we stick with a habit long enough to survive the plateau of latent potential and break through to the other side? What is it that causes some people to slide into unwanted habits and enables others to enjoy the compounding effects of good ones? Okay.
One's around Waxahachie. Here you go.
Girl, I was not talking to you. So thank you. All right. Let's catch up on the chat. Jacob, I purposely tracked everything I refused last month because I knew I would only change my ways when I saw it added up like that. It helped. That's a good idea, Jacob. I like that. So that visual reminder. Whispers, please take me off the screen. Here we go. Lorena, enjoy that one as well. Amazon. I want my package tomorrow. Yeah, we're impatient, right? Not wanting to wait for things. And Amazon has tapped into that for sure. Larry says, "Do I need to get rid of my husband? He knows I'm on a diet, and when he knows I have a bad day, he offers to buy me ice cream." No, sometimes we gotta be bad. It's good to be bad sometimes, Lorena, right? 80-20 rule. Like last night, my wife was tired. She's a teacher, and they're doing their in her district. They're doing their training, and it's really hard, especially with all the stress of COVID. And I'd been doing good for a while, and I took everybody out to get ice cream at Brahms last night. Same thing, right? You're trying to do the right thing, but someone tempts you. As long as he doesn't tempt you all the time. How about that? Lone Star Picker says, rhetorical statement, what determines a habit's trajectory? All right, next section. Forget about goals, focus on what? Systems. Clay, you'll like this one if you're still out there. And Clay's stressing on the DSD board meeting right now. Prevailing wisdom claims that the best way to achieve what we want in life, getting into better shape, building a successful business, relaxing more and worrying less, spending more time with friends and family, is to set a specific, actionable goal. Napoleon Hill would agree with that. For many years, this is how I approached my habits too. Each one was a goal to be reached. I set goals for the grades I wanted to get in school, for the weights I wanted to lift in the gym, for the profits I wanted to earn in business. I succeeded at a few, but I failed at a lot of them. Eventually, I began to realize that my results had very little to do with the goals I set and nearly everything to do with the systems I followed. What's the difference between systems and goals? It's a distinction I first learned from Scott Adams, the cartoonist behind the Dilbert comic. Goals are about the results you want to achieve. Systems are about the processes that lead to those results. But once again, why not do both? That's the part I don't get. If you're a coach, your goal might be to win a championship. Your system is the way you recruit players, manage your assistant coaches, and conduct practice. If you're an entrepreneur, your goal might be to build $1 million business. Yes, sir. Your system is how you test product ideas, hire employees, and run marketing campaigns. If you're a musician, your goals might be to play a new piece. Your system is how often you practice, how you break down and tackle difficult measures, and your method for receiving feedback from your instructor. Now for the interesting question. If you completely ignored your goals and focused only on your system, would you still succeed? For example, if you were a basketball coach and you ignored your goal to win a championship and focus only on what your team does at practice each day, would you still get results? I think you would. The goal in any sport is to finish with the best score, but it would be ridiculous to spend the whole game staring at the scoreboard. The only way to actually win is to get better each day. In the words of three-time Super Bowl winner Bill Walsh, the score takes care of itself. The same is true for other areas of life. If you want better results, then forget about setting goals. Focus on your system instead. What do I mean by this? Are goals completely useless? Of course not. God, who's scaring me? Goals are good for setting a direction, but systems are best for making progress. A handful of problems arise when you spend too much time thinking about your goals and not enough designing your systems. That's interesting. Kind of not gone this route, but I get what he's saying. Like, it's the systems that lead to the results. All right, let's check up on the chat real quick. Jacob says, when I'm having an epic moment, I just pour a little extra cream in my coffee. It helps. It feels so indulgent on a strict diet. Yep, that's a good one. Lorena, Jacob, that sounds better than me indulging on ice cream. Oh man, killing me. Not by much, Lorena. If I can't stop pouring, or maybe you can put the ice cream in the coffee. Problem number one: winners and losers have the same goals. Goal setting suffers from a serious case of survivorship bias. We concentrate on the people who end up winning, the survivors, and mistakenly assume that ambitious goals led to their success while overlooking all the people who had the same objective but didn't succeed. Every Olympian wants to win a gold medal. Every candidate wants to get the job. And if successful and unsuccessful people share the same goals, then the goal cannot be what differentiates the winners from the losers. It isn't the goal of winning the Tour de France that propelled the British cyclists to the top of the sport. Presumably, they had wanted to win the race every year before, just like every other professional team. The goal had always been there. It was only when they implemented a system of continuous small improvements that they achieved a different outcome. Interesting. These are some kind of challenging my pre-held beliefs here. I can't. What do y'all think about that? Jacob's working on my systems. They're helpful, but I find I'm still in the phase of getting systems in place. Fair enough. And so now that I've identified what I feel like is a working system, I have to correct all the steps to level myself out where the system can be put in place. Now, what I would say about that is, like I was talking to Clay about this today, and I want to talk about this in the mastermind group here in just a few minutes. We're almost at the end of chapter 1, by the way. Maybe I'll just save it for the mastermind. Yeah. I'll save this for the mastermind. But yeah. All right. Problem number 2. I'm gonna keep going. Achieving a goal is only a momentary change. Imagine you have a messy room and you set a goal to clean it up. If you summon the energy to tidy up, then you will have a clean room for now. But if you maintain the same sloppy pack rat habits that led to a messy room in the first place, soon you'll be looking at a new pile of clutter and hoping for another burst of motivation. You're left chasing the same outcome because you never changed the system behind it. You created a symptom without addressing the cause. Achieving a goal only changes your life for the moment. That's the counterintuitive thing about improvement. We think we need to change our results, but the results are not the problem. What we really need to change are the systems that cause those results. When you solve problems at the results level, you only solve them temporarily. In order to improve for good, you need to solve problems at the system level, fix the inputs, and the outputs will fix themselves. That's pretty freaking good. Death pile. Oh, the dreaded death pile. Yeah, I'm gonna post the Zoom link here. I've got, I think, 2.5 pages. I'm gonna post the link to the mastermind reselling, and we can talk in there. I'll do that just in a few minutes. All right, problem number 3: goals restrict your happiness. The implicit assumption behind any goal is this: once I reach my goal, then I'll be happy. The problem with a goals first mentality is that you're continually putting happiness off until the next milestone. I've slipped into this trap so many times I've lost count. For years, happiness was always something for my future self to enjoy. I promised myself that once I gained 20 pounds of muscle or after my business was featured in the New York Times, then I could finally relax. Furthermore, goals create an either or conflict. Either you achieve your goal and are successful, or you fail and you are a disappointment. You mentally box yourself into a narrow version of happiness. This is misguided. It is unlikely that your actual path through life will match the exact journey you had in mind when you set out. Amen. It makes no sense to restrict your satisfaction to one scenario when there are many paths to success. A systems first mentality provides the antidote. When you fall in love with the process rather than the product, you don't have to wait to give yourself permission to be happy. You can be satisfied anytime your system is running. And a system can be successful in many different forms, not just the one you envision. I don't know where Clay. I know where Clay's at. Clay needs to be hearing this. We kind of affirm his. He's never said it in this way, but it's enjoy the journey. But I think the journey, the progress, those habits, we do need to be intentional about those, setting those in the process. I don't know if I can, Lorraine. I can't throw them out. All right. I would say this. I would say the process or the habits are more important than the goal. But I do think you kind of need to set a goal, and I don't think it should be like the end of the world goal. You hit it, you readjust, set another bigger goal is what I would say. But I definitely think the process is more important than the goal. All right, problem number 4: goals are at odds with long-term progress. Finally, a goal-oriented mindset can create a yo-yo effect. Many runners work hard for months, but as soon as they cross the finish line, they stop training. The race is no longer there to motivate them. When all of your hard work is focused on a particular goal, what is left to push you forward after you achieve it? This is why so many people find themselves reverting to their old habits after accomplishing a goal. The purpose of setting goals is to win the game. The purpose of building systems is to continue playing the game. Oh, that's good. I'm going to highlight that. The purpose of setting goals is to win the game. The purpose of building systems is to continue playing the game, and playing it better, I would add. True long-term thinking is goalless thinking. It's not about any single accomplishment. It's about the cycle of endless refinement and continuous improvement. Ultimately, it is your commitment to the process that will determine your progress. That's really good. Ultimately, it is your commitment to the process that will determine your progress. All right, last little section here. Remember, I'll be giving out the link those that want to go to the Mastermind reselling chat. A system of atomic habits. If you're having trouble changing your habits, the problem isn't you. The problem is your system. Bad habits repeat themselves again and again, not because you don't want to change, because you have the wrong system for change. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Ooh, that is good. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. So if you have a great goal, but your systems aren't there, you're going to be at the level of your systems. Focusing on the overall system rather than a single goal is one of the core themes of this book. Well, seems like I should highlight that. Focusing on the overall system rather than a single goal is one of the core themes of this book. This is also one of the deeper meanings behind the word atomic. By now, you probably realize that an atomic habit refers to a tiny change, a marginal gain, a 1% improvement. But atomic habits are not just any old habits, however small. They are little habits that are part of a larger system. Just as atoms are the building blocks of molecules, atomic habits are the building blocks of remarkable results. Habits are like the atoms of our lives. Each one is a fundamental unit that contributes to your overall improvement. At first, these tiny routines seem insignificant, but soon they build up on each other and fuel bigger wins that multiply to a degree that far outweighs the cost of their initial investment. They're both small and mighty. What a paradigm, right? What juxtaposition. This is the meaning of the phrase atomic habits, a regular practice or routine that is not only small and easy to do, but also the source of incredible power, a component of the system of compound growth. All right, chapter summary. Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. Getting 1% better every day counts for a lot in the long run. I love that compound interest. Habits are a double-edged sword. They can work for you or against you, which is why understanding the details is essential. 3, small changes often appear to make no difference until you cross a critical threshold. The most powerful outcomes of any compounding process are delayed. You need to be patient. 4, an atomic habit is a little habit that is part of a larger system. But as atoms are the building blocks of molecules, atomic habits are the building blocks of remarkable results. 5, if you want, Clay, you'll love this one. If you want better results, then forget about setting goals. Focus on your system instead. 6, you do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your system. Good first chapter. All right, let's see. Got a couple comments here. The goal is to have a well-oiled machine, yeah. Or the goal is to develop a system of processes, of habits, and have that goal as your general direction to constantly improve. Clay says, finish the race and then take a break because running without a race isn't as fun. Racing is fun and trips to race. If I'm going to train kind of hard, I need some competition to want to train alone mostly. Well, see, but that's funny though. Like the race is the goal in that case. So I wonder then is after you finish a race, do you have a lack of motivation? Whereas maybe the opposite with running would be focusing on the small things you can improve. I don't know. All right. Any comments, questions on chapter 1? I guess next week we'll do chapter 2, how your habits shape your identity and vice versa. Let me get the link to the Mastermind group for you guys that want to join it. We can actually, these things fit in perfectly with reselling, so we can maybe take some of these concepts over. Let me get the invitation. copying the invitation. Here we go. All right. Clay says, I was doing other stuff and didn't listen all the time. I didn't try to get Kathy. Well, you missed it, Clay. This was the one show you should have listened to, because this would have validated you. But all right, kind of works for me. You didn't listen. As you mentioned before, I agree that the goal can't be completely dismissed. The goal, when you realize it's achievable with a great system, will motivate you to fine tune it. Yeah, and then keep fine tuning those goals. But I would say, after thinking about this, that the process is more important than the goal, and the goals can constantly change. Yep. Hope your cat's doing well, Clay. All right. I just posted the Zoom link. Golly. It posted everything. Here's the actual link to the Zoom right there. Shouldn't be daily. It should be weekly. Yuck. What a nasty message. Yeah, I don't want to talk about PD right now, Clay. I'm still in denial. I'm in denial about that. Oh, Zoom's not bad. Let me open this. I'm gonna open the Zoom meeting, and then let me start this meeting. I wonder if anybody's there. Okay. Let's see. Oh, I guess because I can't do it because I'm using the video on this one, so I'll have to end this one first. Let me just pull up the actual link. Sorry, guys. Let's see. Let me pull it up. Go to my meetings. Here's the meeting ID number for Zoom. And okay, here's the link. Okay, all right. Here, I'm just going to do the link. Here's the link. Sorry. Here we go. Hey, glad to see you, David. Hope those book sales are going well for you. It was a pleasure, and we'll keep continuing this talk. If anybody wants to jump over to the Reseller Mastermind group, there's the invite. There's the Zoom room number. We'll see you over there. Until next time, keep working on those positive habits. Let's get a little bit better each day, and let's work on our negative habits a little bit. Until next Thursday, we'll see you guys. Peace.